Murderbot is a strange program. Even this far into the season, episode 9 is the penultimate appearance. I'm still unsure of what works best about it, so even though I'm quite certain I've said it before, it's worth repeating. Flip-flopping between genres hasn't always worked. It should, in my opinion, alternate between being an action series with a little humor and a comedy with the occasional action moment. Given the short length of the essay, its meatier thematic underpinnings can occasionally divert attention from the plotting and other times merit more attention. Episodes. It's all a bit of a mess. But All Systems Red, titled after the Martha Wells novella this season is based on, settles into being a pretty straight-up half-hour of sci-fi action, and I, personally, think it benefits from the simplicity. It probably shouldn't. Something is definitely lost in cutting out everything except Murderbot's tense, and hilariously dopey, negotiation with the GrayCris mercenaries. To be fair, I didn't like a lot of that supplementary stuff anyway, but I did appreciate the moral complexity of the PreservationAux team not having any REA, unsure about how to handle Murderbot's sentience. That is no longer an issue. Since a small portion of this episode is based on the notion that he betrays his charges, any assertions to the contrary are unfounded. He is a hero in the conventional sense. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't give credit where credit is due, especially after spending the entire previous week complaining about the show's inability to consistently pick a lane. Because anything that isn't immediately tied to Murderbot's attempts to get the PreservationAux crew off-world is entirely removed, I found All Systems Red to be more consistently engaging. Sure, there are jokes, but we don't have to endure boring throuple dynamics. Additionally, the framework gives plenty of opportunity to expand the theme and characters, albeit in somewhat ridiculous ways. If nothing else, Murderbot's perspective on people is consistent. Humans are idiots is the same joke, even if it is presented at the expense of the villains in episode 9. Nor is there any nuance here. Murderbot's deception is so blatantly clear that it begs the question of whether the mercenaries are unable to see it when he approaches the GrayCris mercs and pretends to be selling out the PreservationAux squad in order to save himself. He attempts awful small chat, frequently cites names and entire lines from the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon, and is ridiculously proud of himself when he buys a few seconds without realizing he's. This is when the moral ambiguity tries to appear, since the PreservationAux crew, and to some extent the spectator, must face the possibility that Murderbot is actually betraying them. It does not take. Gurathin and Mensah both recognize what he's up to and want to help him in their own ways, even if that means compromising their pacifistic beliefs in order to assist Murderbot in eliminating their enemies. Fortunately, All Systems Red appears to anticipate this and soon moves on from it. The humorous but disturbing comedy in which Pinley hits a merc over suggests that sometimes demands must be addressed. The head using a wrench and frets over his well-being as he foams from his mouth. This is really amazing craftsmanship. Gurathin and Pinley's attempt to launch the beacon and Mensah's antics are paralleled in episode 9 by Murderbot's absurd negotiation, with Murderbot occasionally speaking to both parties at the same time from within his helmet. The comedy works better because it provides a brief respite from the stress, even if you know the carnage is coming but are unsure of when or from which direction it will arrive. Nothing is unexpected. It's all put together so nicely that you probably won't mind, even though Murderbot manages to improbably repel a number of more sophisticated SEC units. The beacon gets launched, and MB gives his life to save Mensah by suffering a fall from a cliff. From a storyline and action perspective, I'm inclined to think that this was the finale, in many respects, and that the final episode will be devoted to resolving the ideas and character arcs that have influenced many of the earlier episodes. Even if Murderbot didn't have all of its ducks in a row, it worked here. At its best, it has demonstrated depth and intellect. Sometimes sacrifices are necessary because of the short episodes, substantial issues, and numerous distractions. In my opinion, this one was worthwhile. One of Murderbot's main responsibilities ever since they